iPhone 7 Plus has the same main camera as the iPhone 7, and the Note 7 has the same camera as the S7s. I've been wanting to do this comparison ever since I got my hands on the iPhone, so let's go ahead and get started with the specs. The Samsung Galaxy S7s have a 12 megapixel sensor at an f-stop of 1.7 and a pixel size of 1.4 microns. There's also phase detection autofocus, optical image stabilization, the ability to record 4K video, and a 5 megapixel f1.7 front camera. Many of the specs of the iPhone camera are pretty similar as well, including a 12 megapixel sensor with an f1.8 aperture, optical image stabilization now found on the standard size iPhone, a 1.22 micron pixel size, and also the ability to record 4K video. And lastly, a 7 megapixel f1.2 front camera. By the way, if you would like to pick up the skins featured on these smartphones, be sure to check out Dbrand with the link in the description section below. But without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at some samples. From looking at the samples, you could tell that both of these phones are able to take tremendous photos. There's really no question about that. Something about the Samsung though is that there's quite a bit of post-processing in the image that adds sharpening and also saturation, so sometimes that makes it quite hard to compare for real. When you look closely, you can tell that the Samsung is definitely sharper, but the iPhone is able to maintain a better dynamic range more often than not. It is relatively close, however if you look closely at the clouds at some of the image, you can see that the iPhone is able to retain them better. And when it came to color rendition, I found that the Samsung sometimes leaned towards the cooler tone, while the iPhone was more often than not a warmer tone, which is something that I'd seen in previous phones. From looking at a lot of these photos, I would say that the Samsung Galaxy S7 out of camera looks better, but as someone who edits a lot of their photos, the iPhone does have a bit of a flat tone to it, which makes it easier to edit. But I'd also love to hear what you guys prefer. Looking at a low light image, the colors are more accurate on the iPhone, however, if you look closely at the buildings and the trees, the Samsung Galaxy S7 had more detail. The iPhone has definitely seen a significant improvement in the front-facing camera, and I found that it was able to balance the exposure a little bit better, but one thing about the Samsung is just how wide the lens is, and in a lot of cases that comes in handy. When it comes to the 4K video recording, both of these cameras were able to record incredible video. With the Samsung, you will notice once again there is some saturation and sharpening added to it, while the iPhone was more true to life in terms of the colors. In some cases, some would agree with me that the Samsung's footage in the end does look a little bit better, but in other cases it seemed to just be over-sharpened and oversaturated to the point where it looked almost unrealistic. One thing that the iPhone is better at though is the optical image stabilization. I had both of the phones mounted on a plate and held on a small tripod, and you could see that the iPhone is definitely more stable, and there is also a jello effect occasionally I noticed with the Samsung Galaxy S7. Like everything, it will come down to personal preference, but in this last clip especially, I think that the iPhone is the winner in terms of the video recording capabilities. The post-processing, as we saw in the photos as well, seems to hurt the dynamic range a little bit, especially when you look at the shadows. But before we head out, let's take one last look at our sponsor. Cellcashir purchases iPhones from all major US carriers, and it is simple, fast, and secure. All you have to do is get a quote, ship your phone, and get paid. It is a great way to sell your iPhone if you are looking to upgrade, so check them out at cellcashir.com. But other than that, thanks for watching the comparison between the iPhone 7 and the Samsung Galaxy S7's camera, and I'd be very curious to hear what you think in terms of the photo and video comparisons. In the end, I would say that the Samsung Galaxy S7 had the edge in terms of the photos, but the iPhone was definitely better at the video. If you enjoyed this video,